Welcome back to Yoga Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Waycott. Today on the podcast, I'm sharing a conversation with Jessica Bugra. Jessica is a registered acupuncturist, an Ayurvedic counselor, a yoga teacher, a life coach, and a Reiki master. I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. Jessica is someone who I absolutely adore, and her and I have worked together over the years in a lot of different capacities. These days, Jessica teaches the Ayurveda module in my 200-hour yoga teacher trainings. And those of you listening who know me personally, a lot of you have taken trainings and workshops with Jessica and I together in the past. Today on the podcast, Jessica is talking about how yoga teachers can support their own self-care, well-being, and energetic boundaries through the lens of traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. I hope that you're going to enjoy today's episode. Grab yourself a cup of tea and let's dive in together. Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Yoga Insider today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I know that, you and I know each other well, and we've had lots of conversations before, but something that I feel like I've never had the chance to really ask you or talk to you about is how Ayurveda was part of your life growing up, whether you realized it or not at the time. I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I grew up in a sort of a traditional Indian household mixed in with all the Western cultures that we were trying to adapt, right? Because when my parents came here, they didn't have any other family, just some extended family. So we kind of grew up alone until my grandparents joined us. But with that, I think my parents really tried to adapt to the Western style, and then they found us getting really sick and tired and just not happy. And then slowly I started to notice, we started introducing Indian practices. I didn't realize they were Ayurvedic medicine. They would just be sort of integrated into our everyday thing. For example, not drinking really cold water early in the morning, making sure we had a really warm, nourishing meal. We thought my dad was just being mean when he said we're not allowed to have cereal first thing in the morning, because we just obviously didn't have the capacity to understand, and maybe he didn't have the language to teach us. But as we grew up, anytime we would get sick, my mom would bring out the spices. And I remember spraining my foot a million times, and she would take turmeric and make a paste out of it and massage it into my feet and wrap it around. Not eating certain things during certain seasons. So it was integrated into these small moments. And I think they were very loud and obvious when we were ill, because all hands on deck. And then as I got older, again, I kind of started adapting to the Western way of doing things. And I remember that would always cause a bit of a ruckus between my dad was really into natural medicine. And he would get so upset. He's like, no, this is not how it's supposed to be. But he never did any formal education or training. And I just didn't think he had the language to teach us why. It was just his way of life and my mom's way of life that they were trying to, throw on us, and any rebellious teenager. And I was like, no, this is so weird. Why would I do that? I don't think I ever even oiled my hair. And I remember my mom trying a couple times, but I was like, no, this is so gross. I don't want to do it. Until now, when I was in my 20s, and I was like, what the heck? Why didn't you oil my hair? It's so thin. It did not grow well. So it was one of those things I think I pushed back, and now I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. It's so cool what it can do. I never had this one aha moment, oh my God, this has changed my life. But looking back, there's been many little moments of Ayurveda.
Yeah. Those little kind of seeds planted when you were younger, when you were growing up, maybe without you even realizing it at the time.
Exactly. Or even some simple things as when we have fruit. We were never really allowed to have extremely cold fruit. And if we did, we would have to like sprinkle some seasonings on there. And now I understand that it's just because, having too much cold, damp style food can slow down your digestion, and the seasonings help to support it. So it's really interesting. Like now it's just something really delicious that I enjoy, but I never understood the purpose of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just for the listeners who are tuning in who haven't had the chance to meet you yet, are
Yeah.
you able to give us like a little bit of a snapshot of your work right now and how acupuncture and Ayurveda show up in your practice? Because you are a woman with like many talents and many skills and you do lots of different things. Can you tell us a little bit about like what your work looks like these days?
So in the clinic, I'm an acupuncturist. That's what people book me as. They come in for whatever symptom or experience that they're having. And then the way I've integrated acupuncture and Ayurveda is I use acupuncture's tools and diagnosing methods, which are very similar to Ayurvedic tools and diagnosing methods. However, there are some herbal supplements and practices that we've already been a lot more open and accepting to when it comes to Ayurveda versus TCM. And that could just be honestly a biased opinion because I grew up with a lot of those practices, right? So when I first started doing acupuncture, I was obviously really enjoying it, but then I'm like, there's just something missing because I'm trying to explain this. I realized after I was trying to explain it as an Ayurvedic perspective, like I was trying to teach people what to do with the things that I learned up. I grew up learning. So then the funny thing about me is when I'm like not necessarily struggling, but I get curious about something, some sort of course or opportunity shows up for me to learn and dive in. And without thinking, it was very impulsive. I jumped into Ayurvedic medicine. I learned all the tools and techniques and like just learned how to communicate that to my clients. So then when I started adding that in, it just made so much more sense because not that Chinese medicine doesn't go into herbs, they very much do so. And not that they don't go into psyche as well, they do so. But with Ayurveda, I was able to dig a little bit deeper. And I found it that everyone resonated so well because we've already been opened up to that community of through yoga.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I found personally that so many people were already open to the Ayurvedic practices through yoga and all the herbs and supplements that we've been introduced to here, that it was just such an easy integration. And I do realize that it's something that I've already practiced, so it's easy for me to teach others and lead others through because it's something that I'm so comfortable with. With Ayurveda as well, because I dove into it after I was done my acupuncture, after I was done learning acupuncture, I was able to go into more of like the psyche, the mental and emotional aspects and how it physically shows up in the body. I was able to explore that a little bit deeper. And that's also thanks to the teacher I had. So that has been very, very helpful with my clinic practice. So when you come in to see me, we're not just going to talk about that symptom. I'm going to go into like how it's impacting your body, your mind, your emotions, your personal health, your career, the entire picture. And then we pick a spot that it's having the most impact at and start working our way, starting from there to the root of the problem.
I really like how your approach is so holistic, right? Like, I feel like you look at the whole person and you just have this way of like seeing people, like, not just in like a clinical way, like it's always so much deeper than that. And I always appreciate that when we're working together. I feel like you pick up on things. It's
I
like,
know.
how did you know that about me?
Sometimes I feel bad that I feel like I'm calling people out on their stuff, but they're showing up for a reason. And if they're not ready
Yeah.
for it, that's okay. But it is extremely important to understand like your headache may not just be a headache. It may be caused by some emotion. It may be caused by something in the environment. And you,
Yeah.
and your headache actually might be caused due to your back pain or your low back. It could be digestive. It could be anything.
Yeah.
It's really important to dig deep instead of just adding another band-aid. And I think that's why people come to see practitioners like us or come to receive therapies such as yoga. So, they get a different perspective. Like they know how to throw the band-aid on a headache, but there's this need or this feeling or desire to like understand it a little bit better and connect with it, right?
For listeners who might not be super familiar with traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, what drew you to start kind of working with these systems? Like, what brought you to this path?
Um, it was a very, very impulsive decision. I, to be honest, I was at a point in my life where I was not happy with what I was doing in school. I was trying to force like a business something degree. I don't even remember what I was trying to do that time. Like the grades are good, everything was good, but I just wasn't happy. And I thought I wanted to go into law wherever. And I actually still remember where I was sitting at the local university's library. And I started searching up, like, I think I did one of those like career quizzes, like what career would work for me. And all these options of going into medicine and natural medicine, all this stuff started showing up. And I kind of dug in and I found acupuncture. I applied to the school for fun just to get more information. They said they have an open house. And I showed up and I remember just feeling at home for the first time. The school was nothing special, respectfully. It wasn't like a fancy school or anything. But I just remember sitting there. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I don't know what it is and why. This is the first time I've felt home in a place like this before. And I just knew if I didn't do it then, I was going to do it later. So it was a very impulsive decision, but what has continued to build that passion and desire is how magical and like cool this medicine is to simply put. Like it is very complex, it's very integrative, but then at the same time, it's so cool what we can achieve just by asking a few simple questions, connecting with the person, and then with our needles or our herbs. I think it's so neat how beautiful and smart our body is, and that there's so many different ways to support people. And I think what keeps me going is seeing like people need this and they're enjoying it, and it brings me so much joy. And it makes me feel like selfishly, I feel really good being able to open up the space and hold the space. I can't always solve the problem, right? Which is fair, but it is really nice to be able to be someone's that safe space where we can dig in. And I make it a point to integrate new like scientific evidence. So I don't like throw out Western medicine completely out the window. I make it a point to integrate that into what our diagnosis and prognosis is going to be. So, and then I make it a point to also integrate that client's lifestyle. So it's not just like, no, this is the way and it has to be this way. So it's always like a fun new challenge. Like there's someone here that like, no, this is what my schedule is. This is all I'm going to eat. And you got to figure out a way to help me. And that can be a lot of fun too. And the biggest joy I have is helping people sit with their emotions. Again, I don't always get to the root of the problem, or I can't always solve everything, but just helping them open up. Helping them open up and connect with their body is a really cool thing. And then with Ayurveda as well, like I mentioned before, it was an impulsive decision. Actually, what happened was COVID hit, and I had only practiced for maybe about like 6 or 7 months, I think. It wasn't a long time that I was practicing for, and then COVID hit. And at that time, there was this whole thing about like, oh my gosh, we're never going to go back, or everything's going to change. And, all the fear that come out. And it did make me think like, okay, what if I was in a situation where I could not be in the clinic working hands-on? Then what am I going to do? How can I create something where I can still support people? And so then I started looking into integrating Ayurvedic medicine and also life coaching.
Yeah.
On that mental and emotional perspective of it. There wasn't this one big event that happened. Naturally, I'd like to say I'm really lucky when it comes to this. Naturally, things just showed up. I was just at the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Now I know that you work with like so many different clients in clinic and you see folks from all walks of life, all ages. But also just knowing you, like, I'm sure you see a lot of yoga teachers in clinic and a lot of people in like what I would call giving professions or people who work in the wellness world. And something that I'm really curious about is if there are any patterns that you have observed working with yoga teachers specifically or people like in specific professions, like teaching yoga. Is there anything that you see like among yoga teachers as a whole? Because I know in the industry we talk a lot about like yoga teachers are prone to things like burnout. Yoga teachers are prone to things like over giving and like giving too much of ourselves and sometimes not having boundaries. So when you're working with people closely, do you see anything like that come up?
Absolutely. I find that there's like sort of two extremes. One extreme is where the the teacher or the practitioner gets overly attached to their work and to their students and to the people that they're working with, or they're completely detached. And they're either, and in both ways, they're still over giving, but when they're completely detached, they're not recognizing their boundaries. They're not recognizing what they're absorbing. They're like, yeah, okay, that's fine. It just becomes their normal. They don't sit with their own stuff and take time to process it. Or they become overly attached where they connect everything to what they're experiencing and they keep adding to it.
Hmm.
So, for example, would be, let's say if there is somebody that came in with, let's say they had a student who's lost their job and had a breakup. Okay. Very emotional student walks in. This teacher gets caught up in the story and just starts talking about their breakup, when they lost their job, and then they start to feel all the symptoms, and maybe it'll start causing anxiety or back pain, headache. There's something that shows up that's their pattern, right? A digestive issue. Or then there's that teacher, it's like, okay, yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry you went through that. And they let it be. It does trigger something, but then they quickly block it. They'll think about their situation, but then they block it. So it needs to be this healthy balance where, you notice a trigger, you sit with it, and you move through it. Not that you sit in it for too long, but then you also don't detach from it or put up a wall. So I notice that pattern comes up a lot, and in both instances, that client is not aware of what is theirs and what is someone else's. So they can, if we go to that client that was picking up on everything and making it, for lack of a better phrase, like about themselves, right? They have this overwhelming experience where then they are going to be so tired at the end of the day. They're going to be so fatigued. They're not going to want to do any of their own work, right? They're going to come home and be like, oh, that was so exhausting. I just want to lay on the couch and like, I just want to eat. And they're going to burn out instantly. But then there's the other instance where, they were triggered a little bit, but then they ignored it, and they just keep going and they keep hustling and they keep pushing through, that they eventually do end up burning out.
Right. So it's like
Um,
at either end of the spectrum, it seems like it is common for those things to lead to burnout
they're gonna,
for,
yeah,
people who teach yoga or people who are in really similar professions.
yeah.
From your lens, like what's happening in someone's mind and body when they are experiencing burnout or like when they're kind of getting depleted? Like what's going on beneath the surface?
So if I go back to my example, the first person I was saying is kind of like uh, in excess, where they've they're excessively attached to everything. Everything is a really big deal. And the other one's a bit more a deficiency, in the sense like they're blocking, they're just going to ignore, they're not going to recognize like how it's triggering them. If we just to simplify it, it's not a very accurate presentation, but if there's a deficiency and then there's an excess. When we have too much excess of something, eventually, like think of a fire, when it is too much, it's going to cause an explosion. It's going to burn things through really, really fast. And then you're going to end up with all this smoke, right? If there's a deficiency, it's going to start getting slow and sluggish. It's not going to move much, right? And then it ends up getting depleted because things are slow and sluggish. It's not absorbing its nutrients well. It's not moving things through. So then they also end up burning out because they're now depleting all their nutrients. So depending on how your burnout started, the burnout is going to slightly look differently. Generally speaking, from superficially, a burnout is like, okay, I'm done. I'm fed up. Like I'm mentally, physically exhausted, right? Like I don't want to show up to work. That is an umbrella. Those are umbrella symptoms. But when we start digging in, it's really important to understand, how did it start in excess or did it start in deficiency? Because then only then I could tell the person, like, okay, what do we need to do? Do we need to work by just supporting your physical body? Like, do we need to give you, focus on giving you more nutrients, making sure your muscles are not tight, you're sleeping well? Or do we need to work on the mental and emotional capacity part of it? Like, what led you there? So first we figure out, how did it get there? And then break it down from there. Generally speaking, I always tell everyone that if you are at a state of burnout, resting is not going to help. It might feel good going on a vacation or taking a few days off. Like it's going to feel good and you should do it, but that's not going to be your answer. We really need to dig in why this burnout happened.
Okay. So if a yoga teacher is experiencing burnout, then depending on if the burnout came from excess or deficiency, the way that you would approach kind of like getting their energy back and getting them back to their baseline would be different, correct?
Yeah, one example could be, let's say if it was a deficiency that caused their burnout, I would actually ask them, if they enjoy the practice, if they enjoy teaching, if they're like having fun showing up, because they most likely are just trying to get through. And if it was in excess, I would ask them, like, okay, what is this urgency? They're probably overworking and they might be a bit more in the hustle mode. Like, was it money, right? Maybe they're trying to do work extra to make a little bit more, or are they trying to prove something? Are they trying to hit a goal? Like, what was it that is what caused it to get you to feel this way? Often, and I ask this people this often, is like, are you bored with your career or with your day to day? And it sometimes it actually has nothing to do with career. It could just be their personal life that's like impacting them. But I ask them, are you bored? And it's so funny. Everyone's just like, what do you mean? Like, no, honestly, like, tell me, like, let's go through your day to day. Like, how does it feel? Is there any love or compassion or enjoyment or fun of any, like, capacity? Because that can lead to burnout real fast when you're bored of what you're doing.
I love how you know what questions to ask people. And I feel like sometimes when you ask questions, like just in clinic, because for anyone listening, like Jessica is my acupuncturist and I've been seeing you for acupuncture for a long time. It's like sometimes you'll ask a question and at first I can see how people might be taken aback by it. Like it might feel like it's kind of coming out of left field. I'm like, why is she asking me this? Like, what does that have to do with, my headache or my sore shoulder or whatever? But like, there's always a reason, right? And you have this ability to kind of connect everything and like go so deep with people. Right. And like you're always trying to find the root. And sometimes it's coming from a place that like we don't even realize, right? Like beyond the body. A lot of times it is emotional or spiritual. And you have a way of like seeing that.
Absolutely. I know I've started giving people disclaimers. A lot of new clients. But I have to, like, it's really important to understand why we're doing what we're doing, right? And our emotions too. Like, I can be like, okay, how does anger feel? Like, oh yeah, like I get a little irritated and frustrated, but then I have to dig in deeper. Like, are you Do you feel angry with things to do with work or money or relationships? Because that anger is going to show up differently. Being angry in a relationship is going to look so different being angry with something going on at your workplace, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really important. Burnout is yes, it's a very common thing, but I think it's misunderstood. And again, depending if you're in excess or deficiency, you could attach to that burnout and make it a part of your identity. And this is something that people don't want to hear sometimes, but we become attached, we make it part of our identity, and because we feel safe in it, we're not ready to make the changes. It's just like being in a toxic relationship. Sometimes, like, we've trained ourselves, like, I know how to survive in this. And we get very fixated, like, no, this is exactly how it needs to be in order for me to get to what I need. And so we get stuck in that cycle. That's why it's really important for me to ask those questions like, what is your motivation behind doing whatever you're doing? It could be the healthiest thing in the world. It doesn't matter. Like, what was your desire and motivation, right? Is it money? Is it career goals? Is it a title? Are you having fun? Not that any of these are wrong answers, but it's important to understand so that we could always bring a balance, right?
Yeah. All right. I want to have a little bit of fun and like switch gears a tiny bit. So, I mean, you and I and a lot of the listeners of Yoga Insider are working in the wellness industry. And we all know that there are so many like trends and fads and things that people get really like obsessed with. And they're like, this is the one thing that I need to do every day because it's going to like heal my nervous system. And I want to ask you about a few different things that are, trendy and popular. Some of these have been popular for quite a while. And I really want your honest, like, hot takes on these things as an acupuncturist and as an Ayurvedic counselor. And the first thing I want to ask you about is hot yoga. So, what do you think about hot yoga?
Hot yoga can be beneficial for the right person at the right time in the right amount of doses. Um, if it's not overdone, then it's okay. So it obviously feels good because we live in a very cold, damp environment, right? So it feels nice and relaxing. It helps to loosen up some of the muscles, and we just get a moment to like melt into the mat. And I'm not against using heat, but when you overdo hot yoga, it can deplete your fluids. It can cause a lot of irritability. It can cause this, like, we call it like a deficiency fire, where it's just fire in your body that gets influenced by your environment. A lot of people are already running hot like that, already running like irritated. There's inflammation, right? They're burnt out. So if we add in more heat consistently, it's going to end up causing weakness. The first thing I actually notice is people will come to this complaint with me. I do hot yoga like 3 to 4 times a week. Why are my muscles still so tight and stiff? And it's because at first they loosened up, they felt good, but now you've overworked them. The fluids have dried up. Now they're going back to being tight because there's no nourishment, right? So hot yoga is nice, maybe here and there, depending on what's showing up for you. But I personally do not think it should be aggressively done. And especially if you're a female that it has a cycle, you really need to be mindful of where you're on your cycle when you're doing hot yoga.
Okay, next one is cold plunging. So, kind of like opposite end of the spectrum.
No. If I had to choose one, I would say you really must do the hot yoga over cold plunging.
Okay, love it.
Again, it's very powerful, but it's about the dose and it's about the timing. Too much cold can constrict circulation. And if we're going to get really specific, it can constrict your digestion and your reproductive organs, so your uterus. So cold is going to bring everything, kind of shrink everything together. If you had inflammation, like you had a sprain, sorry, You really need that cold. You need everything to slow down, right? But again, just in small amounts. It it can be an intentional, like I know some people do it intentionally to build resilience, and I can understand that and respect that, but then it's really important to understand like why do you need that resilience? What is going on there, right? Because that chronic cold can weaken the system. Especially again, we live in a cold, damp environment. So now you're thinking of like jumping into cold water. It's going to slow everything down. And then we have something called the wind gates. So if anything, if your neck, your belly, I even say your back, where your kidneys are, and your feet get exposed to cold again and again, that's going to allow wind to enter your body, which impacts your nervous system and more importantly, impacts your immune system. So you're more likely to get sick.
Mm.
And
So
it,
just
sorry, I was like, and I want you to imagine cold plunging is like putting up a really firm wall all around you, and you're like, okay, like you feel protected, but eventually that firmness, that stiffness is going to slowly start to trickle into everything else.
mm, I
Yeah.
was just going to ask you something about the wind gates then. So you said like those are points in traditional Chinese medicine, right? So like the back of the neck, the kidney area, the feet.
Yeah.
Um, and so do you recommend like that people keep those areas covered from the cold, like in general? Like say you're like walking your dog outside.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, keep a hood on, even in the summertime when it's slightly windy, right? Or we're getting late into the evening, have something that protects your neck, your back. Sandals, flip-flops, like we're so notorious for wearing them all year round. Like if you must, please wear socks that cover your ankles, like have some sort of protection, right? Especially if you're having digestive trouble, you want to keep that warmth, to keep that circulation. And then women on their cycle, like, before your period begins and during, like, please keep it covered, keep it warm, and protected. If anyone's ever under the weather or they're getting sick, like I'll often do work on their low back where their kidneys are, because kidneys are part of the immune system to help circulate any toxins. And then I always like tell them to use a heat pad around that space too.
Mm. That's really good advice. It makes me think about how, like, sometimes we are told things like by our, parents and grandparents, like even in like, European cultures. And I just remember like, being a teenager and like never wanting to wear a coat when I went outside, or like would want to wear like this little cropped jacket or something with like part of my stomach or like my back not covered. And I just remember my mom being like, Alex, like you need to like cover like that part of your body. And it wasn't her trying to be like, oh, you need to be
Yeah.
modest or conservative or anything. She was like, you
Yeah.
need to keep like all of your internal organs warm, like it's bad for you. Or like,
Yeah.
grandma's saying like, don't go outside with wet hair, you're gonna get sick. Don't
Yeah.
go outside without a scarf, you're gonna get sick. It's like it's not for
Yeah.
nothing.
No, and again, it was a lack of communication. They didn't know how to explain it to us. And while we're on the topic of cold, this goes for like cold foods, like salads and smoothies, like that we like to overdo. Ice cold coffees, lots of ice and everything. Like you want to bring a balance. I'm not saying they're horrible for you, but please do not wake up every morning and eat something really really cold. I won't go too deep into this, but our body like follows like an internal clock, right? And in the morning there's more yang in our body, right? There's supposed to be naturally more heat, and in the evening it's supposed to be more yin, so we start to cool down and start to rest our bodies so we can sleep deep. So if you wake up in the morning when you're supposed to be warm and have more energy, and you add in all these cold habits, it's going to start to suppress that yang energy. And then it starts to
Mm.
create that imbalance, right? And then in the evening, if you do the opposite, you do overheating, overstimulating, super spicy, foods, that's going to stimulate, add in yang when we're supposed to be a little bit more yin. That doesn't mean that that's when you eat your cold foods. It just, you need to be careful of the balance, right? I like to give an example as a sushi. Sushi is cold, right? traditionally. It's a cold dish, but if you notice, they pair it up with ginger and wasabi, which are very warming, or they'll give you some tea, or they'll give you some miso soup. Like, so there's a combination of, okay, you're going to eat this cold um, food, add in some warmth around it. So if you love your salads, add in a warm protein, add in some nuts and seeds. Naturally, foods have warming properties. Have that, have a nice herbal tea with your warm salad. Don't have a cold smoothie and a cold salad and then go have some cold ice cream.
Everybody who's listening to this who does like an iced coffee in the morning and a smoothie in the morning and then like hot yoga at night is probably
I'm so
not,
sorry.
they're not liking your advice right now.
I'm valid.
Well, and that's the thing, right? I mean, that sounds like that's what it comes down to for just, keeping your energy good and staying like you're feeling balanced on all levels is really about balance in every area of your life. And that comes down to even like understanding the energetic properties or qualities of like the food that you're eating and the exercise that you're doing. Like, yeah. Okay. So for yourself, again, because like, you spend so much time looking after other people and caring for other people in the type of work that you do, what are some of the self-care practices that you like to come back to, especially when things are feeling off or you start to notice that you're feeling a little bit depleted or maybe kind of like bordering on a little bit of burnout?
Yeah. Um, there are two things to this. I used to feel like self-care needs to be this really big event. Like it needs to, I have to take the day off. I have to take this bath and put on a mask. Like it used to be such a big event that my body would be like, I don't have energy for all of this. No, I can't do that. Okay, well, maybe do this on Friday night. So I kept pushing it. And that would cause more of an imbalance and be frustrating. So then I realized I need to take all the things that feel like self care and start integrating it into small moments throughout my day with the intention that this is my self care. So I will have sometimes those big moments where I'm like, okay, I need a day where I just reset. And those days typically look like actually organizing my space, making sure my environment is clean, organized, because a lot of burnout, if there's chaos in your environment, there's going to be chaos in the mind, right? And then just that also helps me to check in with my schedule. Like, what are the things that I've been adding on that I shouldn't be? Who should I be saying no to? Did I take time to plan fun? And I will then take out my phone and start messaging my friends like, hey, can we do this? And so now I've gotten into a routine that every like 2, 3 weeks I check in where I've like scheduled in fun because yeah, my schedule's all over the place. So that's really important for me, right? Um, Other practices that feel like self-care is like taking time to cook a nourishing meal, sitting with my counselor. I go for Reiki healing. I go, I know I have these like couple groups of friends where I can just vent to, where I can release what I'm feeling, right? And then those days are always nice, but it's really the everyday things that I do that I feel like have been now supporting me and keeping me grounded. For example, I like to stack a lot of my habits. So for in the mornings when I do my skincare, I have an acupressure mat. So I stand on that while I'm, getting ready for the day. And I take in a moment to set an intention, like this is where I'm grounding, we're going to release. And then at the end of the night too, I do that again. And it makes all the difference in the world, right? If I can't sit down and do a meditation, I'll actually always play a meditation in the morning while I'm getting ready because it's really important that you feed your mind. You feed your mind with things that can help rewire it, right? First thing in the morning. You don't want to, when we're sleeping in Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, we say that when we're sleeping, we're sort of detoxifying and releasing all the toxins and the things that our body doesn't need. And that's why you have a bowel movement in the morning. And that also goes with your mental and emotional health as well. You're releasing all the thoughts and feelings that are not serving you. So in the morning, they might feel the heaviest. So it's really important to move them through. Right. Checking in with yourself and asking yourself, like, am I having fun? Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, I actually ask myself that often, just to keep me in line with what my intention is, right? one big self-care thing that I find that is non-negotiable is that about every 3 months, I kind of do like a vision board. I used to do this one big one, right? But now I've broken it down to small, like every 3 to 4 months to check in with myself. Again, I keep it very simple. Like, what are my intentions? What would I like to see from myself? And this includes materials too. Like, what are the things that I would like to have and do, experiences, and just to check in with myself where I'm at and making sure my life and my life and my work feel purposeful.
Do you like to use Pinterest for vision
Yeah,
boards?
I love Pinterest.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too. Like I'm not a
right.
Pinterest girl really. Like I feel like I've had an account for like a million years. But like last year I went on and like made myself this vision board of like all the things that I wanted to do, like
Yeah.
where I wanted to travel, like starting a podcast, and I like made it and like made it as like my background of like my phone and like my laptop for the
Oh,
year.
I love
And
that.
it
Yeah.
was so crazy because like everything that I put on there, I was like, oh, this happened. It's just like kind of going into your subconscious. But
Yeah.
I've always been
I
a vision board girl, even when I was like a young teenager.
I think I think my teacher introduced vision boarding when we were in grade 6 or something, like really young. And so I've been using Pinterest forever. And one thing that I would recommend is whatever, if you print it out or you pick something, like set your intention. Like, what is the feeling? That's actually how I got my car. I went car shopping everywhere and I was fixated on a brand, but I remember every time I tried a car from that company, I didn't like it. But then I remembered I had written a certain intention of how I want to feel in that car. And as soon as I went back to that feeling, I'm like, okay, no, this is the feeling I'm looking for. I kid you not, Alex, like the next day it was there in the lot. It was a car that I was not thinking about at all. I forgot that this company even existed. But because I connected with the intention, that showed up and it just felt right. And I think that's so important to remember. Like, your intention behind everything is so important. And it will, and it helps you expand because, like I said before, we get very fixated on this is how things need to happen in order for me to get from A to B, that we end up being in that burnout. But if we just step back and like, okay, what was my purpose and intention for this? It's okay if it's a material goal, a financial goal, or, this is how I want to be seen type of goal. That's okay. There's no wrong or right, but your intention is really important. And it's important to keep connecting with that because it helps you step back and see things from a different perspective. And I feel, and this is getting a bit more energetic, but it allows you to open up to so many other opportunities that you probably weren't seeing because you were so tunnel vision, right?
Mm. A little bit earlier, you touched on kind of like separating what's ours to hold on to and what doesn't belong to us, like what belongs to somebody else. And so for yoga teachers who feel like they are really easily impacted by other people's energies, right? Because we see so many different people throughout the week, every time we're teaching, and sometimes people come into class and like they have really heavy stuff going on, right? And we're holding space for a lot. How do you like to maintain energetic boundaries like in your practice when you're working with people's energy, or do you have any techniques that you would recommend to yoga teachers to yeah, just feel like they're able to kind of like release those things that aren't theirs to necessarily carry and take home with them at the end of the day?
Um, I actually learned this the hard way. I remember when I first started, so many times I would like pick up on people's like symptoms and like specific pain that was caused because of a certain imbalance that I shouldn't. I would go home and have that experience, and I was like, oh, this is so draining. Um, and so I learned it the hard way that I have no choice but to disconnect. So one of the practices I started doing was cord cutting, in some aspects where between each client, I'm washing my hands, but as I'm washing my hands, I'm reminding myself, like, okay, what is theirs, and what is mine, and I'm going to leave it here, right? And then at the end of the day, again, I wash my hands and I was like, okay, I'm just leaving it all here. And I do it once more once I get in the car. I just take a moment to breathe. It's so easy. It's so fast for me now because I've set that intention. Just gives me a moment to like check in with myself, like, okay, like how do I feel, right? And then let's just let this all go. Also, before you begin, let's say, you're going to teach a class. Before you begin, ground yourself into a space, check in with what is yours, right? Like maybe you have a tight neck. Okay, that's yours. Just recognize that. And then when you go throughout the day, when you're going throughout the class, you check in with yourself like, okay, I'm just going to let this, I'm going to bring some awareness. We're going to release this. And then at the end, you clear your energy and then you just come back to your own body, be like, okay, yeah, I still have a little bit tightness, but that's all I had. I knew I started with, right? I didn't pick it up from anyone. You can also, like, you can have compassion, but you can also keep a boundary, an energetic boundary. That's not necessarily a wall, but also have compassion and reminding yourself that you have these 45 minutes and that's all that you can do, right? For them and in that space and also in your scope of practice. But if there's something that gets pulled in, like, no, I really want to do this more, like, I wish I could do that, take that as inspiration to learn about what they're going through and why. And then maybe you can expand your vessel, whether that's taking more training or showing up as a different, asking different questions, and just take it as a learning opportunity. So you don't feel like, okay, I need to, because there are going to be moments where they do inspire you to learn more and want to do more, but you're going to need to recognize again, what is your capacity? Other than cutting my cords and releasing it there, another thing I have to remind myself, I just like humble myself that it is not my responsibility, right? It's not my responsibility. And that's really important to remember, especially if you're a people pleaser.
I feel like a lot of yoga teachers will resonate with what you just said.
Yeah, like if you're a people pleaser, you have to check in with why you want to help someone. And what is your intention? And really sit with that, because there are moments where I'm like, I just want them to think that I'm valuable. So then you do all that you can, and you'll notice, like, every time you do that, it doesn't work out. That usually that person on that side, the reason why you're feeling pulled to do so much for them is because they have some sort of block up. They're not ready to receive either. They're not ready to change their ways. They're not ready to see things from a different perspective. And that is sometimes just a lesson that you need to learn and like go through on your own and learn.
If you had one like gentle challenge for yoga teachers, or like a truth that would kind of shift the way that we teach or we practice, just like based on all of the yoga teachers that you've worked with in your practice, what would that be? Like, what would you say to the yoga teachers listening, as an acupuncturist, as an Ayurvedic counselor?
I would say recognize your self-concept, like how you feel about yourself, how you see yourself, what you think about yourself, and how that shows up in your practice and how that shows up, how you are as a person. Not just in your practice, do that self-concept work in your personal relationships, right? And I feel like a lot of yoga teachers have other careers as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sit with yourself and see what you attach your worth to. Like, are there any places in your life you're like, okay, I'm only allowed to have this I'm only allowed to have this experience if I accomplish X, Y, Z? Do you find yourself always comparing yourself to other people? What are some parts of you that you're struggling with? When we struggle to love and accept ourselves, we may not recognize that right away, but we'll see it trickle into our finances and into our opportunities with our careers. Often there's this big connection between love and money that Chinese medicine and Ayurveda like talk about when we get into the psyche. And honestly, I'm going to leave it at that because this is a very, very deep topic, but I just wanted to throw it out there. Like, really sit with yourself and think about how you feel and see yourself.
I feel like I want that to be another episode. I feel like we could go super deep there.
Yes. And it's something that I'm always constantly working with myself, but how about I give you a little story?
Okay.
When I first started, as a student, obviously had student debt and everything, I would start counting all the clients I'm getting and I'd be like, okay, I need these many more, please, please, please. I really need these many more to like pay this bill. And every time I did that, the next day I would get so many cancellations. Clients would just disappear. And then I would get frustrated. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not good enough. And then I would start putting myself down that I'm not a good acupuncturist. Then I would try posting online and I would be posting things that I didn't even like. And I was in desperation, right? I was so desperate. And that kept pushing. Once when I let go and I stopped counting and I was like, no, this is how I'm going to be as an acupuncturist. Oh, this is really intriguing. That person had big emotions. I didn't know how to handle that. So I just worked on that's where I started digging in, like how emotions show up. So I just started working on myself. Then I started to recognize my limiting beliefs, the work I need to do, how I love and accept myself. And naturally, the weeks started filling up. And now, even with Instagram, I don't post a lot, but I post when I feel inspired, and that's okay. I'm not putting myself in this desperate energy, like I have to post X many times in order to get something. I post when I feel like it, right? So I'm coming in from more of from more alignment. It doesn't always happen that way. There are still some days where I look at my schedule. I'm like, okay, it would be really nice if I could get like 10 more because I'm going on vacation. And just like clockwork, like all those clients disappear. The ones that I did have, I have all these random cancellations. So self-concept is really, really important. Like it'll show up in your career, it'll show up in your love life, it'll show up in every part of it. So I think it's really important to work on.
All right. Before we wrap up for today, where can the Yoga Insider listeners either work with you or learn from you if they want to connect a little bit more?
Yes, for sure. You can visit my website. It's just jessicabugra.com. You can come in for an acupuncture treatment. You can book an Ayurvedic consultation. I also do coaching, mentorships. I do Reiki as well. So there's many different ways. So if you're like, I don't know where I want to start and what I need, I would just say book a complimentary call with me. But you could go on my website and send me a request that way.
All right. So even for like all of our international listeners, like there's still ways for them to connect. So they could do life coaching, an online Ayurvedic consultation. Do you do like distance Reiki as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing.
I can definitely do all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and share your wisdom with our listeners. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Yoga Insider Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to leave a rating wherever you're listening from. Your ratings really, really help more yoga teachers around the world benefit from the podcast and these conversations.